Hello everyone and welcome to worship at Warwick Anglican Parish. Today is worship for Sunday the 2nd of August. You will know by now that we are going back to some offline worship, so our community congregations will be meeting at St Mark's today at 8:30 and at St John's in West Warwick at 10:30. However, we know that there are quite a number of us who are not able to come to church at this time, and it's not wise for you to do so. So we will continue to produce our online messages with references to our readings and also our music, which we'll put up on our Facebook feeds. So if you're joining us online for church today, well, welcome, first of all, and thank you for being mindful of your own safety and your own risks at this time. Our two Bible readings today are Genesis 32, 23 to 31 and Matthew's Gospel 14, 13 to 21. The two pieces of music that I have chosen for today, the first is Kyrie Eleison, that's that beautiful piece from Nikki and Anita Haig that we were learning earlier in the year, and the second piece from the Iona community, The Summons, Will You Come and Follow Me If I But Call Your Name. So we'll have those links for you on Facebook, and you might like to queue those up and prepare for worship. And now our message. In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. I can't find the photographs, otherwise I'd show you the few that I have, not so very many, of a woman called Katerina. It was almost 25 years ago, hard to believe, that I travelled with a group of young people across Europe and into Romania. And Katerina was the lady I stayed with for about a week. She wasn't as tall as me. She was stocky, she had olive skin and a lined and kindly face. She had a crop of short, dark hair with a little grey in it. And she had been young during the Second World War. She was a widow from memory and no children, and all the weight that those words carry. She lived in a modest flat in a large apartment block in the city of Craiova. I don't even know if she is still living. And now I think back on that time, I wish that I had perhaps stayed in touch with her. But as she spoke no English and I very little Romanian, it probably wouldn't have worked. Katerina didn't have much, but everything that she had was carefully looked after. The walls of her flat were painted pink, except the kitchen, which in my memory was a pale green. And she would fuss over the three of us girls who stayed there, cooking for us and talking with us in a patchwork of broken language and mime and giggling. What she lived through, I can only guess. The hardships of being part of the communist bloc, the food shortages, the poverty, a corrupt regime where the president's dogs were kept in luxury while people starved. A country where families put children they couldn't afford into an array of dilapidated, badly resourced institutions, some blessed with loving employees and others with sadists who kept disabled or unwanted children cooped up in light-starved wards, their bones growing crooked behind the bars of antiquated metal cots. In this place, Katerina embodied generous hospitality, whatever the struggles and the challenges, which she offered with a heart as warm and as strong as the coffee she brewed. Her life wrestled from a tangle of grimy utilitarian architecture, dirty streets, gypsy gangs, and understocked markets. Yet, where there is sorrow, it is written, there is holy ground. Katerina, for me, stands somewhere between the boy who happily gives his lunch as a solution to the feeding of a crowd whose numbers he probably can't count, and a man caught in the net of his own choices, full of fear and regret, wrestling with God on the banks of a river. Life doesn't always go the way we might expect. The youthful optimism of greener years might give way to something a little more jaded, as loss or anger, loneliness or illness write some chapters in our life. What happens next is differentiated by a single word: faith. Faith that there is another way. Faith to love and to hope when both are dim stars in another galaxy, and the lightless, heavy satellites of adversity and suffering orbit us much more closely. Katerina would have known suffering, but she offered nothing to us but a smiling, gentle kindness. These two passages today, one about Jacob, Israel, fighting for his blessing, and the other about the blessings of a child undaunted by the size of a hungry crowd and blessed by Jesus in turn, are strangely timely. Life can distress and overwhelm us. We don't need to go far to know that. And we might not, in these situations, know which way to go next. We may well feel jaded, afraid, or weary, or as if the patterns of our past just keep punishing us. Julia Baird, who wrote that beautiful book, Phosphorescence, reminds me that Christianity is grounded in love and in suffering. Faith, she observes, may be a form of living light, but it is not neat and ordered. It exists in mess and chaos, doubt and brokenness, where perhaps the greatest spiritual practice is just showing up, being present and attentive. Jesus' disciples stumble in the face of the challenge to feed a crowd of 5,000 men, not counting the women and the children. But what the little boy's simple act reminds us is the power of doing the loving thing, the caring thing, in the face of overwhelming obstacles, just showing up, doing something with great love, with grace, with courage, wrestling with the big challenges of life and faith, being present to a world that needs to know God's love, not our censure. This is at the heart of our calling. Tim Winton once observed, "Let your life be your witness." In the midst of a broken country, a broken economy, a dishevelled population limping from decades of joyless and corrupt governance, Katerina's life, it was her witness. Today, I'm going to finish with a poem that has been inspired by Genesis 32 and the struggle of Israel. It's called The Second Blessing. May our lives, may our faith be our witness. May it be our holy ground and our hard-won blessing. The second blessing. He wandered down by the river wide after the rising moon and caught a glimpse of a figure of light who walked in the shadowy gloom. Their paths must cross, he knew full well, yet he'd not a mind to speak. His heart was afraid of the coming dawn and the welcome his brother might wreak. He'd run for so long from the past he had made, the blind father's blessing he stole. Could it be Esau, a blade in his hand, to exchange a twin's theft with his own? Step by step in the gathering dark, the stranger was closing by. He turned from the track to motion him past, but the man stopped near to his side. "Are you Esau?" he quaked. The man shook his head. "My name is ancient and sacred," he said. "I have followed you here as I've done all your life, the unseen companion of your triumphs and strife. You deceived your family and so yourself, and now you weigh whether to flee. But I swear to you here, by this river's edge, this night you'll struggle with me." There comes a chapter in every life where we stand at the river's side, and it sings the memory of life and of love in the murmur and rush of its tide. The blessings we're blind to, the people we've loved, those we've run from or lost too soon. And we struggle with God to make sense of it all in the heartbreaking light of the moon. So Jacob wrestled with God through that long night, wept his shame for the brother he'd robbed, for the woman ignored, for the one he'd adored, for the grief that his journey had cost. And as dawn finally blushed round the dome of the sky, the Ancient One struck and wounded his thigh. "I am leaving," said he. Jacob stood in his way. "Until you bless me, I bid you to stay. I once stole a blessing and ran from the fight, but the second I've earned through my struggle this night." And so, blessed in his own right, and given a name, no deception or hiding, not afraid or ashamed, Israel, baptized in sweat and in blood. So it is with us all, washed clean by the flood. They find courage in darkness, all who struggle with God. May God bless you as you continue to worship with us, either online or offline. Take care, stay safe, be a blessing. Amen.